Hello, everybody. My name's Sam Irzeri, and today we're going to talk about making sense of chaos in chaotic situations. When we talk about whole system, collaboration, and change, what we really mean is change that involves people. To help an organization transform itself, we need to teach it to learn to function as a whole. It's needed when an organization and its communities wish to commit to shared visions, make change happen, take initiative, and more. If we wish to transform the systems we work in, we must draw from the basic elements to invent our own tools that help us organize the chaos. As I began my process to make a connection between facilitative methods and whole systems, while also using affinity diagrams and mind maps, I was expecting to go in depth about how to conduct change interventions, but I was curious to see how it would all connect with affinity diagrams and mind maps. I initially dove into the instructions and began to read. And read and read and read. And the enormity of the assignment about made my head explode. How could someone be so cruel, I thought. I had to know why. Why is this process relevant to organization development? How is creating a mind map and an affinity diagram going to make me a better change agent? And more importantly, internally, I questioned myself. How can I help a client make sense of a chaotic situation if I can't even help myself? So before I found the answer, I had to go through the process starting at the beginning. The first step in my process was to get familiar with the change methods. Facilitative change methods are tools that we can use to help us facilitate whole system transformations. I started by skimming the basics, such as conditions for success, how to sustain results, the processes, the roles, and responsibilities. I briefed myself on the 7 main methods and also researched consensus decision-making, strategic visioning, and learning map approach. I really wanted to focus on methods that were innovative, creative, strategic, fun, utilized technology, and matched my personal visions. I then switched my attention to the 8 essential elements and began making note of the important characteristics represented in each one. I realized early on that my brain was already starting to make categories and topics. I decided at this point to better organize my thoughts, it was time to start my affinity diagram. This affinity diagram isn't mine, but an affinity diagram is a brainstorming technique that's used to help make sense of groups of ideas within a raw list of information. I searched the 8-element articles for key words, ideas, and concepts. Anything that I found relevant, I put on the board. I found out quickly that the current process wouldn't work for me. First, my handwriting is what you would call chicken scratch. Second, I preferred to use a computer to organize my work. I found an awesome website called Trello that would help me do just that. So I started my diagram by using the elements as main topics. I read about the elements and began to get better meaning and definition of each of them. I conducted a content analysis and extracted key words, topics, phrases, and copied them into my diagram. Once I was done, I started to organize the information to subtopics. This gave me a better idea of the definitions of each element, as well as a plan that I could use to analyze the 10 methods. While analyzing the methods, I found important recurring words that helped to define each element. Why, beneficial, meaningful, connected with purpose. Body, whole, and groups went with system. Theory and empirical went with evidence, and so on and so forth. After I had a foundation of meanings and definitions for each element, I began to dissect the methods and search for important information that would fit with my existing diagram. I studied appreciative inquiry and abundant community, open space technology, and future search. As the ideas began to pile up, I realized it was time to give my list more meaning. Using the affinity diagram was a great way to extract the ideas, but as a visual learner, I needed something that helped me visualize the information to help me put it into practice. Mind mapping is a note-taking system that uses images, colors, words, numbers arranged in a connected radiant and hierarchical structure. What makes it different from the affinity diagram is that it structures ideas around a centralized topic in a visually inviting manner. The information flows non-linear, similar to the brain, which helps to develop and explore ideas. I started my mind map looking through the lens of the 8 elements at the center. I created a main topic for each element. Since I already had begun grouping my ideas in my affinity diagram, the map began to quickly fill. Suddenly, my 8 elements had multiplied by 3, and now I had 24 subtopics. I immediately began to recognize branches that would be easier to develop, and I started there. Categories like system and experience flowed naturally for me. It was easy to construct. I even had to stop myself at times from going down rabbit holes. It was easy to get stuck in one element to try and develop once my brain started down certain paths. I even found myself pulling up notes from past studies to fill in the gaps that weren't on my diagram. Some elements were easier to fill than others. Purpose and values seemed to overlap, and I had a hard time categorizing them. Other areas, such as invitation and technology, had dead ends and didn't develop fully. I thought invitation fit better as a subtopic to purpose, and technology could fit somewhere in system. My ideal map would make technology invitation subtopics and focus on the 6 elements. I began to see my map as a valuable tool. I appreciated how it can be changed, adapted, refined, and redeveloped to fit new ideas as they came. It became easier to quickly find a subtopic because I recognized it as part of the larger topic, and my brain naturally followed the path it created. When I started the process, it was hard to understand where I was going. I was a little too close to the situation. It was difficult to see through the fog, sort out the chaos, and make sense of the big picture. It wasn't until I stepped back that I was able to see the full map and started to see its true beauty. It reminded me of a Monet picture, and it all started to become clear. That's when I had my light bulb moment. This project had many moving parts, many requirements. The instructions pointed in different directions, and there was a large volume of information that needed organized. I had to learn to find my own process and methods for using the tools before I could make sense of all the chaos. It began to make sense why mind maps and affinity diagrams have been tools used in OD since the early 1960s. They help organizations to think more expansively and flexibly. They help change agents to organize events, and they help us find interrelationships with the information we obtain from our clients. Mind maps are used in groups and whole systems for planning, project management, negotiation, presentations, problem solving, collaboration, creative thinking, and note-taking. They help us to save time, improve efficiency, and be more creative in our thinking. Research shows that these tools, such as mind maps and affinity diagrams, can even improve performance while enhancing and accelerating our learning experience. Going through the process was stormy. It was chaotic. It was a whirlwind of events, and it was hard to tell which direction I was going. It was similar to a hurricane. To make sense of the chaos, I had to weather the storm by finding my own tools and processes to organize my thoughts and create ideas. Weathering the storm was a vital part of my success. It was necessary to go through the storm to understand how I benefited from the journey, as well as be able to articulate how the journey applied to my learning. The storm began to clear, and as the storm began to clear, I started to see the sunshine. This process was my journey to self-discovery. Going in, I thought it was about learning the key concepts and methods, understanding the 8 elements and connecting them to whole systems. I didn't clearly see the purpose of the assignment when I began. In addition to learning about methods and elements, I learned to develop my creativity skills, how to utilize tools and technology, how to manage complicated tasks, how to make connections and form patterns, and how to organize large volumes of information, which is the thing I'll take with me the most. All while helping me build a foundation of knowledge with a tool that can continually be developed and will serve as a foundation of information when I begin to form my personal OD library. Now I'll have a map that connects all ideas and will lead me directly to the answers I'm looking for. It will also help me plan and brainstorm ideas. And I can see clearly how I can use these tools both personally and professionally as I move forward in life. I'll conclude with a quote that I thought was a great metaphor for my journey. And one day, the storm is over. You won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain. When you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. And that is what the storm is all about. Thank you for listening to my presentation.